Rajya, so I think you also understand. Marketing do like Bonafia mana kiwa everything.
Everything. All in one.
Poster hadanye, social post hadanye, campaign hadanye, video hadanye, uriyaja hadanye. No one buys something because you have capabilities. So you buy because you have outcomes. So, eheng yaada na class pune. Tibi honna adu war bono. Tuku vejja. War bal kata kurejde.
Assalamu alaikum. Digital Transformation Podcast ganeka isa episode ka marhaba. Mifahar badda mikollani wara tafaat ko online podcast record kollam again. So this time we have with us Yaamin Mohamed. He is the Senior Partnerships Manager of Lottie. Hello Yaamin.
Hello. Oba.
Koba kiha hai sab ke tevdani.
Mihar में थी मलेशिया का ऑफियो का फिर मलेशिया का तो गेगा तो क्या करना लैपटॉप कह रही था
Yeah.
क्या चीज सादा मैंने वहां तक
So Yaamin na ane dima kolle hawa ka takka ambenu mani poda ekka tech unfunya we are also a tech company. And locally, aslo, khasa cover farm, we've been seeing a lot of tech products being brought out into the market. So I just wanted to talk to you about tech marketing as Kurani though. But before we get to that, aslo kodako, Yaamin with some introduce kolla. I wanted to discuss and get to know your career goal. Where have you been though?
Okay. No, and Eros, I think, man, that's what 2015 hisabu, 2013 hisabu Aero, and I graduate again, and Moscow, Malaysia, Kiev, graduate again. Then Eros, we got a key mad ass, and Eros, I have Bodokaban me Moscow Maki. Then everything was done email ko fahan, then Moscow the bending here, then Air Olo main crowd. Then Air Echo work and a shaman, mothership. And a video production the shaman body under then Timanda signing him the then Jobe Contimanda mothership start mothership then Egethere was work about the production side. The production side would have the work for deal marketing me. Air Vataki, Ginafar as a creative side of and air Vataki, then what a pair was with the key then to the hatchet, and the key with the mother court. So air hang one thing hitting areas to be no commissaraka marketing side badada. So air then have interest rigging air then the opportunity air UN project ministry. They needed somebody who was working on like a communication and marketing. The air age of got the UN tere commissaraka expose one fish marketing side. Then hang ulamundamongos and air walk around the Bangkok coffee hacky. UN giving coffee hang work of thing bad projects they start to gang can that or the Ehendamong as Mantaya Aerogula Mantaya. So then started working on Mantaya brand launch project plus Mantaya marketing housing in 2 years. And COVID terega arrow than we got the key. I had a bit of a and then Hitari Koroka Baja Badal with an Arab Bodangas Vade Jimmy tech world tech ratting I can that thing was there's the Vataki. Hitanganes people Daka get in way. Bache, Soraka. Again, then an air what a pair take that thing. Neither masters are there, but Badal. So I have masters at the Malaysia and business IT masters at the then business IT Hedun Terega and a Commersoraka and a Mikolo and a startup in MyBump Media and a Danish and Kura. The MyBump Media tere commissar expose one for product marketing. Then masters Nimenico then air and LottieFiles and not to air Kulafa had the Beno here, the Kologa or Korofire. Then with LottieFiles said Benme Badada. It's a big opportunity. Then Egetere what they only Boda and LottieFiles today, and then now it has been around 4 years LottieFiles Terega. And we started off as Boda community manager role. Ehendamundamung as asumha warabodam the senior partnership manager role there. Nige work kuranje kada muranya sales product and engineering na detere gagadakina role them and then of course working on different community friends also. Well back at the courage
Yeah. So Pudevaraka learning journey though like even as field me are Kurimbenum Kura marketing techniques the kai Pudevaraka Padal for that. So when they want to have like sec mask email kolla like email RSVP hack and that Kurani though. But now it has come to a point where aslu vara negi hunna iruwa sama marketing materials taka ichemi fennani like social platforms taka ichindo. So how would you say is tech marketing, how has it changed since COVID?
So I think and ege bala so I think if you compare rajya like rajya mi kan taka I think what about him bala da fiya rajya so I think you also understand marketing do the bona fiya mana ki everything da
Everything all in one.
poster hadanne social post hadanne campaign hadanne video hadanne uriyaje hadanne ta aso eko mero thing wara hitan ara achenge I'm not dismissing anybody so like rajya I think we have very sharp creative people and who knows exactly what they're doing eko Lottie my bump tantarang as are they have a walk around version must be thing aso ngorihado me kuran emme kameke aso okay we're just doing marketing we're not thinking about everything else thing LottieFiles so them when it comes down to this the kada what about a changing about it we have for them the world is so fast kada thing kada you can't just do a primitive and even watching time is now then it's what about the with
attention span kuda ungasada
what about the then me and me har echi hodan they know exactly what they want to find the what about we I think and the biggest change that I have seen is even marketing from a tech product perspective is we are also used as marketers Rajay we do a lot of push marketing like push kuran okay they and MMS say hoda to video hada and social media hada it's not a bad thing me community kuda we just keep pushing and then hopefully people like your product and then somehow along the way they will buy it about changing pull marketing you don't necessarily go out there and you are not creating a demand. You are finding the demand that already exists, and your point is you are making sure that you are there when in a time then they search or search kuro noni compare product compare kurar. How do you fit into that position and say okay, and me I'll give you an example. Dunia boleh gaya millions sebenarnya designers ada the person. Then and one thing that LottieFiles harang waragina kuraka make missing two hages misada ka and people are searching for how to get an animation on the design tool. Epa kineng ho ilan ito. Then anna misaka and epa slow no kineng he Lottie ilan ito. The intention and narrow. I think this is the biggest change today is when the intention exists or comes in. How do you plan to be in that position where they find you? And that's a pull marketing. Then as warabodang difference tinghara kurin yung article mihong geneto check kurma Instagram eda run kogge yung ato nunto. So egotang asumi na change warabodang as mahadon.
So right now misayaka like if especially as to misayaka creative or someone who working in tech they know what they want. You as a marketer, you are putting yourself in that position to make it seem like okay, we have a solution for this, we have a solution for what you need. So it is more effective way instead of like misaka mask do you get more value out of doing what you do?
I think it comes hand in hand. Of course, you need to push as well. Push becomes more of like I say 30 to 40%. The bottom and cool. And one thing is my SEO. SEO is one general thing you have to always be there for. Search kura kining hai. Mehara baad hai AI artificial intelligence passive baad hai GEO se baad hai. So naturally me huri hai where how do you position yourself as misada ka AI kine pick kura hai mehara. But again for mehara the Google guest Google and Gemini am as well kura. You don't necessarily go through every single thing. Gemini as well kining hey how do you become the top and search that thing. No. Then about the misaka egitura the kada steps again. So once you are found, then kine hata. The mareba the documentation about it. And then how do you become the Kamana generally useful? Mar
conversion though
a
ganna කියන
conversion. Exactly. Then not to have he's very big on these things. And what about that misada and while you push things because you always push to ba dekkala muna ka nenge mi huna kine anna
it puts yourself out there in the
just
market
out
though.
there. Yeah, exactly. The
Yeah.
pull is the point where generally when you have a problem, how do you bring those people in? So it goes hand in hand with those scholars for about especially work with developers though. Developers know exactly what they want, but how do you be in that position where they really need you though?
So in that regard aslu miharabale rekka pudevara kabboda marketing strategy and hadafa like you spend a lot of time planning on what you want to put on the market taw misaka mihen and you spend a lot of time planning this and compared to like the execution miharabale rekka people atibune like they know what they want, the AI summary is there and the internet makes everything very accessible though. So is it really necessary here Miharo is like that big GTM plan, that big marketing plan important in this current era?
Yeah, 100%. So I think Rajay, I don't think we practice this a lot. And I mean, a product marketing pass or a product manager. And the GTM is very important because you still need the translation layer between Bihar and they got data button and engineering and product creation and capabilities like no one buys something because you have capabilities. So you buy because you have outcomes. අන්නම්වගේ මර GTM ප්ලේන ගන්නජෙ වර පැරච්තික ෘතමකාමක මේනජෙ පොසිෂනිග මෙසිජ කාකත්තෝ මිත අන්නානේ වීති කාකතෝ මෙරි ප්ලේස් කුරණි අන සෑක ඒති ගන්නඥ කොචෙත්තෝ ස්විච් කුරට මද ඒසාමක පොඩක් මාකටිම් බැන්නට මාකටිම් බ ස්වරක මෙන මර අන කොබාතෝ මෙහර ඇති නේරේ how do you make sure everybody speaks the same consistent message ekkada remember the foundation bෑමන the GTM they had about launch best then comes on and launch I think is where a lot of people confuse what's very important thing I think a lot of times we see and you launch something and then press release but what happens afterwards enable making sure whoever is in your product sales to support the community to ನೋಡಿ ಬಿಸಾಕ ಆಹಾರ ಮೇಲೆ ದಕ್ಕಡಿತಾವ ಅದು ವಿವಾಹ ದಕ್ಕಾರ ಕೀನಂಗೆ ವಾಕೆ ದಕ್ಕಾರ ಯಾತಾಕದ ಹೊರಗಿನ ಫಾರ್ವಾಕ ಮೆಂಗೆ ಎಕ್ಕದ ಖಬರ್ತಸ್ ವಾರಾಜೆ a lot of this is my experience from Mantaya ವಾನಗತಕಿ ane ವರ ಆಹಾರ ವರ ಅವ ಕೊಮ್ಮೆ ನೋಕ ಗುಳ ಬುಣ ಮಂತಾಯ ನೋಡೆ ಮಿ ಮಂತಾಯ එදේ කවන්නක හරුම් මෙද පොෂන බයි ෆර් නොහක චහන so we used to call them එද හිතන් අරසු කීව බයම කොපර කුලා පුරනේ
confusion යන්න නේ
කොෆි ජන්නඩ කීව it all comes down to මෙහරක්කද how did you enable that message to the and GTM had that thing human GTM the misaka you as a marketer today you have to be the person in the building and who knows what customers are doing and saying. So I have a GTM then the Mihuriacha waking assume anything that you are doing because product and him have marketing again downstream it's a very much upstream the marketing role has also changed where marketing you're also now influencing company roadmap as about the marketing influence. We never decide okay and dinema vikkaana was yaar baje dinema but dinema baje vikkafa even as bona amiri echi and get change kuri manaka vikkafa as those are things which are very much there now in the GTM and everything.
So it's a continuous process me hareka eche dinema eti rangalu ko fa maneka improve ko fa nekka dinema maneka improve ko fa like you have to incremental echen annange baje hedo abadwes
ಅವರ ಬೊಡಕ್ಕೆ ಶಿಫ್ಟ್ ಮೆನೆನಕ್ಕೆ ಸರ್ವಿಸ್ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟಿಂಗ್ ಎನ್ನು ಯಾರು ಬೊಡ ಮೆನೆನಕ್ಕೆ ಸರ್ವಿಸ್ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟಿಂಗ್ ನಕುಂ ಬೊಡ ಎಕ್ಕದ ಸರ್ವಿಸ್ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟಿಂಗ್ ಮೆನೆನೆ ಎಕ್ಕದ ಪ್ರೊಡಕ್ಟ್ ನಿಮುನಿ ಮತ so you have people like social media manager ekkada different people who are doing the service side but that ekkada GTM level ಮೆನೆನಕ್ಕೆ product marketing ಅದಕ್ಕೆ me sequence cooking HH test cooking marketing is about the AB testing
yes to know what's right though anakati kuram again
absolutely it's a for me to work okay how do you change that message to see okay mihine da and what about like position sequence ganna nekika different positions we have and that's it was very interesting. Doti ka hatan tanasa. So furtam do wara boys go. And see, I think hada nut the CEO samasa ham peshi ekete. So and me because we are very used to as marketers, right? We go design event that.
About this design of this.
We social post and hada menge hawa. I that's the thing. Ko ba messaging na ki. To ko ba non jole cheki. To ko ba ka. And then that was my first day of reality of learning. Ero aso anghar wajja kantak korata. Maybe I'm taking the wrong flow though. So we are changes.
Yeah. And it's also quite interesting, Misak, as a marketer, you find yourself in a position where you are dealing with clients. Let's say some of them who are like not from technical background, and you are working on a product, Misak, about this consistent improvements, updates, bug fixes, again, and you are also in a position where you're communicating concerns and pain points to the developers, the development team, and how do you bridge that gap? How do you speak a language where you're translating the concerns into like business logics and whatnot?
The हमारा स्वाद है so I'll be very honest.
Yeah.
See, there's no right way.
No.
So and ginafar and it's how you communicate and customer pain points though, and then one thing that I'm also learning even every day is that not every complaint is a valid complaint. And what I mean by that is a lot of times like a support level you bring like, all these different things, and then what we also try to do like, look and see is like, how much of what they are saying is like, an actual problem versus like, what they wish the product to be, and then how do you define all of these things and also bring it back to the product team. Product team one thing that I see a lot of marketers is you don't learn enough about the product or the craft before you actually go and be a marketer. I'll give a simple example. We have a very, as a marketer, I think, and even for me as well, what a default at that. And keening a market kurana, me like we have a very default. Set pattern. And then even when feedback, we have this thing where we take forming event then so form for other we think on that level where the brand of say were affecting about them to fix no coffee and you bring into the product. And then but what I have learned over the years is when it comes down to the product and what we need to do, you also need to validate it from a product perspective. This is why being in that middle position helps. So migen ko bahay an impact ki mi makita mi yung haye puni mi kita mi hun to mi mas and then you bring and say hey because you also need to make sure that you are data backed as well to say okay funnel mi yung complaining maybe this is a pattern, let's look into this rather than komme and kiriya me kotta desa wara hasu brand bhaja ko mi kan fix to coffee so for me that role is there, and then it comes to like how do you communicate that. One thing that I've learned is engineering with design was always understand if you are able to give that problem statement in a very defined way. So problem statement hifagging as impacts level able to look at it. And of course you also have to understand engineering change for there it can't be an overall thing. How do you also expect them to go through that and then find you something? How do you define what's urgent and what's not urgent, and how do you come back to that? A lot of times we have customers, and even at Lottie, my Mantaga couriers, and who would have specific things that is a deal breaker. From a marketing perspective, a deal breaker worth and how do you navigate those things? So and then how do you bring it back to the tech team and say, hey, so those are things I guess, and which was a very big learning for me. So
I would also want to ask you, like there are certain types of categories of customers. So there are like business customers who are like business T and like there are consumer level like B2C customers as well. Though, so a differentiation gengule like communications ka is like waki gota katta wahaga takkam vijayani like one customer into the other customer. Though, how do you maintain those relationships between like the B2C and B2B?
B2C and B2B. So I think
Yeah.
it depends on it. Misaka me B2C needs are B2B needs are tafat though. How we generally look into it is misaka B2B level the combine it's how it impacts the company. Misaka company level the kobahe in impact ki when you don't have certain level of services. And we also have them analyze as well. B2C level loko asya boda meannani misaka their needs are very different. Individualistic needs unnana. Misaka team badafiyamu meharu ane animation ane create koge eti manage koge misaka medani gina freelancers misaka boda meta mikurane mihunge na file storage. So how do you actually communicate the need ekkada buying a free one buying a misaka ane cost me so you have to analyze their pattern and figure out misaka ane what are their ekkada me anebra product level ko mit badan but what they look into is misaka ane kobahe main need emhuge mi annada which ekkada you can provide a service for and what are things that ekkada they require to actually loop them in. In our case, misaka creation is one area where we don't charge anything for. And then go me and misaka storage space that's where you can that person. Bodang eti asu meaning as identifying their behavior patterns identify offer to figure out okay what's the best there where you can put that pricing point. Similarly to B2B and a B2B level the kong ebade hamwara bad different katata and and I'm coming up with companies that they home bada hamwara political misaka they look at compliance bada security bada I'm bada misaka ka file lanya mo ko ba data security ko ba and those things become a very different conversation. So we in Lottie Ganam Sag have a specific sales team which goes and deals with those things. And me B2C level look is where the marketing team but how do you get someone in them? What a funneling me had funnel you bring them to top of the funnel. So what are the right messages to give them? What are the right emails to send them? So marketing level look and අන්න හිසාබ මිසාදක marketing රෝදකි කොබාත product රෝදකි කොබාත and support level ki kobato so ane marketing level ko mennani meharo kada purtam kaw ko mena push kurani push koge kada top up me then topang ama then misaka ane ege bade product rode bade support marketing rodaki misaka kihinen he mi had inform kurat so in our case it's like education level looking how do you funnel them down from a top level to a certain point where they kind of buy the top saka ganna hisab B2B level looking men එක top genessa misadaka ki anika education process settere what are things that require and then how do you push that message out so a difference
that's very insightful aslu echa vidigan aslu hen swale beskollam benu misaka mikoduga rajyaga let's say usually product develop ko product market kora tech product misaka software do ada market kurairo I want to put a pricing on this do then balairo ekka misaka mihum wara me are use bavedo me AI gaves there are a lot of people who are using the free model but how do you price your product in a way okay masar in a monthly mihakam vare annually mihakam vare if you are making a product like that rajyaga context ka kinange kung echisakato balawe
I think anika sa willingness to pay though yeah isabu ko dakane though there are different things if you are very sure about that you are a very premium product and then if you can approach the price point even at a start though you can put that price point and ginafahar misadaka teachisa badanya I think it all comes down to at what level do say it depends on different products though product with a freemium product you might use the free part to attract them no? And then if you have that cater for the demand and then within the price with then pricing is about different strategies. So, again, I think Rajya, I've seen a couple of companies with them. Pricing strategy hada for price test ko fund those to see how people are. And then you also try to limit what is free as well, and to see if I can convert with someone into a kind of paid plan. Those are things I think that people always check. Winning winning money and that's one technique we've seen. Also, it also depends on your own cost as well. Pricing value set and you can't just say me rupiah me service day rupiah and you can't charge rupiah though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Think about that.
Yeah.
Think about that as well. Then
So,
it all comes, it
yeah,
comes,
no,
it all comes down to those different pricing strategies.
Hmm.
In our case, so and marketing and pricing mostly comes from the sales side. And the product side on them we can make a price because product side on the cost back. And then and sales side of main and services what's the price point where you can make something. So
Yeah.
those are things that they're looking at Lottie. So we don't actually look at the pricing part with that.
Yeah. So let's say misaka my product in hedi. Like a product in hadafa, I'm putting it out there like misaka social media, Instagram, Facebook, tanta product so social platforms ka product let's say I'm also making marketing plan then TikTok short reel and how important is it that I should focus on physical banners like tanta hip mihar is it important physical banners
Raj, I don't think so. Yeah, I mean, when was the last time you bought something?
mihar or those
Well, this is I think half, not even half, the most population phone
yeah
and I think most people like even my parents Facebook the Facebook Instagram and I think TikTok different categories of me and I have one I had generation bahad again different segment so I think what about mehar baje digital level of me friend now it comes down to discovery. How do you learn in a way that you get discovered more? And I think global level warabod search warabod email list community Rajya if you look at how we reach it was me I think my mom told me Facebook rented me rent kura hachitake botte party take rent kura hachido then warfa samana beneke me beno ko kada share no genna ka beg ka deche botte marketplace ge botte ja Facebook and of course you have to be smart about the algorithm and everything but they ga naka tillakka and tedakka bi Instagram deve so genuinely if you look at a physical LED rather than if you look at a digital LED today, I think digital LED reaches better though because especially if you compare Rajya South Asia again our mobile usage is probably higher in terms of population. So I think is better. I think customers are not, I think, Rajya underconnected. Yeah, there's maybe my opinion. Rajya but I feel like Maldivians are much overconnected, and especially because we talk a lot of tech, we talk a lot of different problems. And Twitter, I give example. Kamet Dimaja Twitter and my algorithm, tech guys to Twitter, the messages it's there.
Yeah.
And we have so many people comparing things on Facebook, different things. And we are very vocal. So if anybody who is starting out, if you can figure out how to place yourself in that in these conversations, I think the best strategy Rajya is right now going digital, and then competing in that space and finding the marketing Twitter catch the warm up kuruma, warm up cooking algorithm change kuruma, and how do you make sure right people find you? I feel like digital level there's so much you can actually do compared to physical.
Yeah. So you have to, it's about going where people mostly are doing but it's mostly digital though.
Mostly digital and especially I'm phone
Yeah. So now like we are slowly approaching towards the end of the conversation. I mean, I wanted to ask you, like, throughout your years in marketing and different roles, is there like one strategy or marketing plan or product that made you realize, looking back now also,
I think and I also have to thank one of my friends. I'm not sure. He probably he actually remained anonymous, but he actually opened my eyes out to one. Then Shafras for a Shafras strategic marketing and Mantaya originally launched again, and we were the newest then, I think for a very long time. Then Aero launch game, we were thinking strategy. The Shafras was someone I always look up to for giving advice thing, and I take the same Lottie and strategy at this period of and then he was like, and I think I hope like tourist to Gebadia let's figure out about Mantaya level lakung and bought a maro. Because since in Yada and Rajak you sell seats to resorts, and resorts, of course, book those seats and say the package.
Yeah.
Buni and resorts the onboard Kura Hingasho Buni resort to attract one Huriha Kantake. And I remember him coming in and because Kadim is a resort, the lifestyle property. So how do you change an airline into a lifestyle property? So then Kuram Fishi Kamaki, and we remember and we sat down and then we started looking into so resorts love to do influencer marketing. Influencer marketing is a big thing. So how does an airline position itself in the middle and then say, hey, influencer marketing airline is so airline Boduima no guest was So I remember we started doing this campaign with a lot of resorts and say resort is luxury. You need to show a luxurious airline. So why don't you partner up with us to do influencer marketing and strategic level? So we step in it, and then slowly we were able we build that airline and a presence Rajeg. And remember my most happiest moment was the TMA, of course, was large. But 1 year we were the second most for the airline Rajeg, and there were actually demands coming in from I remember we did a lot of Indian influencer stuff, and then and we got my best moment was like and India guest was so for me that was annoying. But coming back to what I learned is like position is abstraction you have to also identify where your business is at and what's the best strategic move you can do at that point to bring everything in. And then influencer marketing was what we did. And and the thing is, we never spent so much money on that one. What we did was see to that.
Yeah.
Well, of course, it is a cost, but still, the cost was very much worth it. And then this have to build our reputation across other resorts. And slowly it was able to and not only in influence our social growth, it also helped to get GM says Mantaya the Mantaya bare me had the resort
so brand was out there.
Absolutely. And then it also helped we were probably the only airline would just say we are cool, lifestyle young and cool. So, and one of the reasons we were able to do that was because fast pushing strategic level resort that's positioning ourselves in that middle position and say, hey, I have me. small market addo assu technically and resorts datta terega ekom a position shop ivare was able to help us get ekkada that win on ekkada mibuna getting deals done ekada emmena ingedo and that education part happened on that level, and that was my ekkada still I look back and say this was my finest moment.
That sounds like a really interesting ಅವರ precise plan anakati ekolli already kuda market ge terega insert kon ando that
and wala ganun po na di akina I mean ko mola kami and people thought it was random as well, but every person we talked to and then it comes to me muna kami har den kumas reflect ko every person we talk to aharambana meen ecche bonan jehne meen word beedon koran jehne meen gotakashe innan jehne photos inna meen jehne we used to get that agreement done with every single person.
oh okay.
So air komme photo ge sinna ekka hama boat beeru ge mantaya dogo fenno gota photo naga hada. So it became a very big viral campaign at those call. Yeah, then
that sounds interesting. They were a control. Everything was even down to the very messaging and
everything. In your tropical way to fly. So it became that thing, and then we had to define what is tropical way to fly, and then hamra Shafraz helped some of them. Tropical way to fly hinga have been defined, and for me, that mentorship was very important to what I am today. So I have a Shafraz man have fidawnas me harangen Shafraz.
Shout out to them. All right. Yeah. I think thanks Yaamin for coming in and having this conversation with me. And I'm sure Aslu, I think this would be an educational episode as well to a lot of people who are interested in marketing and tech marketing especially. I felt like Rajye Aslu Tankole niche echeke adives milevelga marketing conversations that discuss kurarado. So thanks a lot, Yaamin.
Okay, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thank you.